Hey guys, what's going on? So today I have an album review for Internal Bleeding's VORACIOUS Contempt. Of course, if you're not familiar with Internal Bleeding, one of the earliest brutal death metal bands, and one of the first bands, if not the first band, to really focus a lot on the slammier side of things. Suffocation kind of crawls that these guys could walk in that aspect, in my opinion. And a lot of people like to compare these guys to Suffocation and call Internal Bleeding a ripoff of Suffocation, which I think is like bullshit, so I'll talk about that later in this video. But anyways, this came out in 1995. It's their debut release, or their debut full length. They had EPs before this, which were both fantastic, but I really think that they nailed it on this one. 6 out of the 10 songs that were on this release, I believe, were on both of those EPs, but I think that they add a little bit of extra nuance, some drum fills, some little vocal breaks and stuff that really add an extra oomph to the songs that's on here. And yeah, this is just a really fun, groovy, super fucking heavy release. So, I guess I'll just go over a little bit of the CD first. Really sick album cover. It's just some dude with a gun like up to his head. Really like their logo. It's very blocky looking, but it looked classic. Love that side text for the album title. Classic picture of the band. If I didn't mention earlier, these guys are from New York. A lot of the other New York brutal death metal bands around this area had a similar sound. Of course, very Suffocation-y. You know, bands like Pyrexia, Afterbirth, Dehumanized, Cerebral Hemorrhage, Repudiation, Entorturement, you know, stuff like that. But just like lyrics and stuff in the booklet. It's a really rare CD. Very happy I own this. Definitely one of my favorite CDs I own. Picture of the band. So I think to start, I'd like to talk about the production on here. So for a album that you could pretty much call slam, it's not slam in the sense of like this doesn't really sound like Devourment or like Cranium or Symphalatropsy. It doesn't have a more modern sort of slam sound. This is a lot more old school. There's a lot more of a hardcore sort of influence to this. It's also very hip hoppy. It still has a very street sort of sound to it, like a lot of slam does, but almost even more so, but in a more old school sort of way. I don't really know how else to explain it. If you listen to the album, you'll know what I mean. But anyways, this album has more sound production, which is obviously much more of an old school death metal thing. It sounds bad objectively in the sense of like it sounds brittle, but in my opinion, that type of production works so well for this because slam needs nasty production, and this album has dirty, fucking gritty sounding production. If you imagine like Napalm Death's Harmony Corruption, but with a little bit of an extra low end kind of punch to it. I'm not sure how else to describe the production on here. The guitars are very like oversaturated and like they're chunky sounding, but they're very sharp and like needly. They're just very fuzzy sounding and very staticky. The bass tone on here I think is probably the best tone out of everything. The bass just sounds very, I guess, smooth. I don't know. It just has a very nice charm to it. The drums are just super like aggressive. It's a lot of, I don't know if it's the triggers on the drums or just how hard the drummer hit on here, but they're just super fucking punchy and energetic. And Frank Rini's vocals are fantastic. They're very unique. I can't really think of any other vocalist that really sound like him. He goes very low, but it's not like a guttural, like Devourment sort of vocal style. It's very unique, and he has a kind of, like his vocals almost sound unintentionally funny with some of the lyrics in some parts, which I'll talk about. But anyways, so this album has like an intro, and it's one of those intros that like comes back at the end, but like the intro like kind of like instrumental like keyboard thingy that plays before the first song, Language and Despair. I don't know if it really fits that well with the sound of the rest of the album, but the way it comes back at the end and it kind of plays backwards sounds kind of eerie, and I just think it's kind of cool, but I don't love the intro. But anyways, the first song, Language and Despair, one of the best songs on the album. There's not a single bad track on here. I think I'd say my least favorite is probably Disqueliment or Rotting Flesh, but even then that song is great. Every song on this album is like perfect. Anyways, Language and Despair, just super fucking heavy, so much groove. The lyrics on that song are probably my favorite on the entire album. They're about this dude that just starved himself to death. It's just really fucked up and depraved sounding. Killer song, Anointed in Servitude. If you haven't turned Internal Bleeding, listen to that song. There's one part of that song, if you heard the song, you know what I'm talking about, that will completely sell you on this band.
I command thee to rip
Yeah, if you like that, then and you want a whole album of shit that sounds as groovy as that, then you will love this. But yeah, Noise in Servitude, one of the best songs on here. I mean, probably my second favorite on here. It's just so catchy and just like energetic and aggressive and groovy. Can't think of how else to describe it. It's just so fucking chuggy. It's got a lot of hip hop sort of groove to it, very bouncy. It also has that hardcore sort of bounce to it as well. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just really fucking like groovy. Reflection of Ignorance has a really frantic sort of intro. It almost sounds kind of funny. Like it sounds like they're like on a mission out to go get somebody or something. Reflection of Ignorance is another one of the best ones on here. Epoch of Barbarity and Gutted Human Sacrifice, they're kind of intertwined. They've like, if you listen to the album without looking at the track listing or paying attention to like the track number, you'd think it was one song. Because there's just like a really quiet part at the end of Epoch of Barbarity, and then it cuts right into Gutted Human Sacrifice. But two super fucking groovy songs, just a lot of speed ups and slow downs throughout this whole album. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, this album just kind of like pushes you around, and it feels very like overwhelming in some parts, but you really like it. Like, it's super fucking groovy, and you really settle into the groove, but like the grooves feel unfamiliar once because they're not really that predictable, to be honest. Some of like the blast beat patterns I'd say are more predictable, like the tremolo riffs, but everything else, all the grooves are like, it catches you off guard and it sounds cool. I don't know how to explain it. Excuse me. God of Subservience, my favorite song on the entire album. There's a killer fucking sample at the beginning of the song.
I want you to get this fuck where he breathes. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ass.
And there's one thing that he does in that song. He does it in a few parts of other songs on the album, but on this song in particular, Frank Greeny, he does this like, there's one riff that's like entirely palm muted, and he kind of like makes his voice sound more like muffled and like quiet as it goes along with the palm muted. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not like he's like clenching his teeth or something, but it sounds more like, it just sounds like a little more like low key, and mixed with the palm muted riff, it just sounds so fucking sick. It's like, it's like a vocal equivalent of like a palm mute on guitar. It just sounds amazing. But yeah, God of Subservience is just so fucking groovy. Prophet of the Blasphemy is pretty good. I'd say it's one of the weaker ones, but it's still solid. Humanicide is another one of the most popular songs on here. Super fucking groovy, killer intro, just really kicks right into it. The classic lyrics from the game, the secret to the past denied and all that shit. There's one part of that song with the lyrics where the way he says it just sounds really funny. There's one lyric and it's germs are spreading like wildfire, and the way he says it is just really fucking funny. He's all like, germs are spreading like wildfire. Germs are spreading like wildfire. But yeah, I love that song though. It's so fucking catchy. Human Suffering is another one of my favorites on here. Just got a lot of just awesome slowdowns and speed ups. A lot of killer blast beats. Just that very New York 90s sort of groove. And Spoilment of Rotting Flesh, it's not my favorite song ever, but it's really good though still nonetheless. There's one part at the end of the song that sounds a little cheesy with the come on scream for me. I think it sounds a little goofy, but still a killer song. But I can't think of any other complaints. I think this song's a 10 out of 10. A lot of people like to compare this to Suffocation's Pierce From Within, which I think is really stupid because this song came out the exact same year, and 6 out of 10 of the songs on here were written like years before Pierce From Within even came out, so that's not really a fair comparison. I mean, they both have more sound production, but on here it's a lot more raw, obviously, than Pierce From Within, which is one of the more high quality, more sound productions. But yeah, if you think that these guys are a Suffocation clone, you're an idiot. They sound like they borrow elements from Suffocation, and this guys wouldn't exist without Suffocation, but in no way are they a clone. In my opinion, they take an aspect of Suffocation sound and they kind of expand upon it and do everything that they can with slams. And I mean, the slams on here are a lot groovier and more like, they have more variety than in a lot of slam that came out later in like the 2000s and even the later 90s. I just think that these guys are great, and I don't think this is really cookie cutter. Like a lot, like I love slam, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it the grooves can be a little cookie cutter. But on here, they always sound refreshing. I think it's really the New York hardcore influence that really goes in here, that kind of beat downy sort of sound. I love it. But yeah, honestly, Ritual Contempt is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is essential listening if you're into brutal death metal or slam or just death metal in general. Classic album, super important to the genre. If you want some really groovy, punishing shit that's meant to be played loud, and if you're gonna listen to this, listen to it loud. Don't listen to this at low volume because you'll miss something. It's just so energetic. This album makes you want to fucking dance. There's some grooves that are so catchy that you don't know how you would dance to them. It's just ridiculous. I love this shit. So yeah, Internal Bleeding's Voracious Contempt, 10 out of 10. So that's it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.